Anyway, technology is difficult, and I'm going to blame it on the beer. But I'm here with Branch and Jeff, and we're talking about how happy we are that the Reds signed Terry Francona. Yeah, he was at the top of the list, but there were two lists, right? There was the list of who you want to have, and then the list of who we think is realistic.
Right.
And buddy, I didn't think there was a chance in heaven or hell
No.
that Terry Francona was going to be the Reds manager. They just over and over again, they've made the wrong decision, the wrong call when things like this happen. And I got that text message and just couldn't freaking believe it. So it's real life. We're fans of an organization that did something that the entire baseball world agreed was an incredible choice. Branch, how'd you feel as soon as you got the news?
I was blown away. I didn't think it was real. I'm not even kidding. I woke up the next morning and had to check again because I was like, "Did I dream that?" There's no way this is real. Because I mean, I was just everybody. I mean, all Reds fans I talked to, we were all Tito would be the best one, but then we're like, who are we going to settle for? Right. It's like we were looking for where's the settlement at, and it was like, David Ross or Gritty McGritterson, and or whoever. And heck, we were probably I was a little worried it was going to be Benedictus, but it was just amazing. I didn't know what to do, and then the press conference, I was blown away. I was like, oh my gosh, he knows how to speak. This guy knows how to talk. And that's so amazing.
Like, do you remember the episode of The Office whenever Dwight was trying so hard to be the manager, and so he wrapped himself in bandages and like I thought David Bell would do that. I thought David Bell would come in some kind of costume and just be like, no, that I would take on this persona just to be the manager of this team for the rest of my life. No, I was so beside myself because I was already starting. All right, how do we explain why Skip Schumacher's the guy? How do we explain why David Ross is the guy? Like, trying to connect these dots and here and there, and it's like, no, got a bona fide Hall of Famer. I mean, Dusty Baker's going to be a Hall of Famer, but back whenever he was managing the Reds, that wasn't so obvious. Right. It's very obvious that Terry Francona is already a Hall of Famer. Like, as much as I want him to come here and just succeed with flying colors, he wouldn't have to do anything as manager of the Reds, and he would still be a Hall of Fame manager. So that in and of itself is just why it is so amazing to see that the Reds were able to get him, not only to come here, but also to give him a 3-year deal with a 4-year, the 4th-year club option. We could be talking about Terry Francona as the manager of the Cincinnati Reds in 2029. Definitely didn't have that on my bingo card last year.
What do you think, and we'll start with you, Branch, what do you think was the number one factor in him deciding to come to Cincinnati? I mean, some of the options are my heart goes to the young talent. Like, you get an opportunity, you want to manage, you're going to manage again, but there's other jobs that are either already open or going to be open. Is it coaching Ellie De La Cruz and Hunter Green? Is it he's familiar with Cincinnati and has spoken glowingly about opening day here and what kind of baseball town it is? And what do you think motivated him the most to come, not just back to baseball, but Cincinnati?
I know this is going to sound a little bit weird, but I think, well, you have all the talent there. And, and he's spoken about how he felt about Pete. Mm-hmm. And with Pete dying, and, he played with Pete in Montreal. And I think he just felt that it's where he's supposed to be. With the pieces falling in place like they did at that time, that's where he felt he was supposed to be. And it doesn't hurt none to look at that talent. And honestly, to look at he's not stupid. He looked at the what pitching they had, and he's like, all right, there's something there. There's something there.
Well, I guess that's the only thing other than haircuts that me and Terry Francona have in common, because I also felt like Cincinnati was the place for him to be.
Yeah.
Jeff, what do you think the primary motivating factor was?
I think I definitely think it was the connections. I know that Nick Kroll went on record and said that Marty Brennaman was a big reason why they even started talking to him. And, we like to We like to question Marty on a take here or there when it comes to some certain players, but for the most part, it just shows you that, he still loves this organization and he still wants to see the Reds succeed, even though he's not talking about them every single day. I think that the connections were a big factor, and he said in his opening press conference, which, by the way, I know that every team, unless you're the Jets, whenever they hired Adam Gase, really loves their opening press conference from their new coach. But I think that might have been the best vibes that I've ever seen from an opening press conference for anyone, not just Cincinnati sports, but any sports team, because of the way that he handled it. But his answer, without even skipping a beat, without even thinking about it, was, no, I didn't bring up the fact that I needed them to go out and sign this guy or go out and trade for this guy. Like, I made no demands as far as the roster is concerned. And that, for me, is at least slightly comforting, because I kind of felt like that probably would have been, if I were in Terry Francona's position, that might have been one of the first things I would have said. So I kind of find that a little bit comforting, that it wasn't, yes, we're going to spend X amount of dollars for you, even though I think we're all in agreement they definitely need to spend X amount of dollars for him, because the roster needs it.
Yeah, it was interesting. I think that a lot of us expected that to be the case. We sort of assumed that must be part of the deal. And for him to get out in front of it, we'll bring up Skylar's question right here. Skylar, Dwight, we see you guys in the comments. Shouts to you. What do you make out of Tito's quote about not using payroll as an excuse? I'll see if I have that quote handy. I have a few. Terry Francona said, I hope you never hear me talk about payroll. What I care about is the players we have, trying to get them to be the best baseball team they can be, whether they're 20, 30, or 40. I think it was a little longer than that. That's just what I have in front of me here. If he's not going to say, I demanded they improve the roster, which I don't think he would say it even if it was true. You don't call out your front office, put them on the spot like that your first day on the job. With Terry, I don't care. Gosh, he has made a career. And sure, Boston, they had those big payrolls, but they didn't in Cleveland. And everything he said about getting the best out of his players and kicking ass, and he hit every single note. And that was part of the reason it was so refreshing. We haven't had a guy that can stand up in front of the media and just succeed like that outside of Joey Votto, I don't know, since Dusty Baker, maybe. We're so used to listening to Nick Kroll and trying to listen to David Bell, but you can't hear him. That having Terry Francona get up at the mic was a breath of beautiful, fresh air.
I loved him talking about, when he got asked the question about what was his managing style, and all good managers are this way. All great managers are this way. Well, that depends on who I'm managing.
Right.
It depends on who I'm dealing with at that time.
Yeah.
Because it's your job as a manager to get the best out of that person. It may not be the same for everybody how you do that. Tito knows that. That's what makes a great manager, is getting the best out of the tools in their toolkit that they have and knowing how to do it.
And I think that was a very underrated part of his press conferences, that he was so relaxed and it was so very natural for him. There were so many different things that he said. Like, he even leaned into the fact, he's like, man, getting to be on the 1987 team, and like, I revered Pete to death, but I thought that he played me way too much that year. And, things like that. It was just like, hey, he knows what he's doing up there on the microphone. And a side note, like, I was clipping up some stuff and using it for my show, and whenever it came to doing that, I was used to having to bump the volume up 400% for David Bell. I bumped it up maybe like 5% for Terry Francona, so we're already well ahead of schedule, boys. We're already well ahead of schedule.
That's incredible. I'm going to declare it right now. You will not hear a one quote from me where I think the Reds should fire the manager in 2025.
Yeah,
I promise.
I sure as hell said that plenty of times in 2024. Not
I
too often in
reposted all my tweets
2023.
of wishing the Reds had Tito back in 2023. Every time that I was watching Tito manage, I was like, and this is when he was suffering from health issues still, and I'm like, gosh, he's good.
You were correct then, and you were correct this year too. Speaking on the health thing, which I want to say some of the conversation around that I found to be slightly unfair. A lot of people online commenting about well, as long as his health's
Twitter
fine,
doctors, you got to listen to their medical
all the
comments.
Twitter docs. He looked good. He looked good. He wouldn't take this job if he didn't. If he didn't feel good. And I don't know. I'm excited. The optimism right now is at an insane level compared to where I ended the 2024 season. Barely tuning in those last couple of weeks. I don't have an everyday show like Jeff, so I didn't have to watch every single game. We have drafts here so we can try to have fun a little bit.
That was a rough year.
Man,
it was
really
one of
was.
the toughest.
It's almost summed up by this one very, very annoying thing, and that is in game 162, the Reds go to extra innings, and what happens in the top of the 10th? Noel V. Marte is picked off as the ghost runner on second base. It happened all year long. It's like just death by 1,000 cuts in the same place because it was the same mistake that they constantly got. It was so annoying to watch. And for them to have done what they have done so quickly. And we said that whenever they fired David Bell, we're like, it's really weird that they were like 1 week left in the season, then you're going to fire him. What's the point here? And obviously the point was they heard something that Terry Francona might be interested. And they're like, we got a chance to be the first ones on his, the first one to text them. And so we're going to make sure that we do that. So for once, they did something that seems smart. Yeah.
Nick Kroll was us. He was all of us. He was like, there's no way Terry Francona wants the job. I'll shoot him. He had a couple glasses of wine sitting in his study. Fired off a text real quick.
He's like, I'm going to have to be the first one to go get stuck in Terry's couch.
Did you just see Nick
Kroll? But like,
take you up?
There had to be an element, even if Marty told Nick, like, hey, I talked to Terry Francona and he's interested. And Nick Krall's like, yeah, and so's Juan Soto. He's interested too, I bet. Let's see. Like, hey, what do you think, Terry? Yeah, I'm into it. Really? Brad, you want to go to Arizona? Like, what are we doing here? Let's go. Or wherever Terry Francona lives.
They flew Coach out there.
That's I did see that. That was awesome.
They flew Coach out there.
I don't know what to think about that. You think they had to?
No,
they were
told
us
to get there right then. I think
like Coach on Allegiance?
Tickets. I just went.
Oh yeah, we got to take what's available.
They just needed tickets and they just went.
There's only a handful of flights. You got to go.
Yeah.
Hope they got the frequent flyer miles on that one, man.
I thought that was a mandate from Phil Castellini. He's like, wait, we're still paying.
I think it was they went to the airport and they're like, we got to go now. We got to go now. What do you got?
The whole team's flying Frontier from game to game next year.
I doubt when Bob went out there, I doubt he flew Coach.
Let's pull up this comment right here from, you're right. You're 100% right, Branch. Dwight Kelly says, what do you think of the personnel moves already made? The hitting coaches didn't take long, did it? My first comment is going to be, did y'all know they had 3 hitting coaches?
No.
I think
y'all talked about this on Lockdown.
Because I remembered hearing about Terry Bradshaw for the only reason because his name was Terry Bradshaw. I couldn't have told you what he did. And no, it wasn't the quarterback of the Steelers. That's not what he did. But the third guy, never heard that name in my life. I did not know he existed. And I thought it was interesting because I saw something else. And I don't necessarily know the outlet or whatever it was on Twitter that tweeted it. But they said that a couple of years ago, the Reds really committed to Driveline. And by doing so, by hiring Joel McKeithen, and Joel McKeithen really signed on a couple of other analytically driven hitting coaches and things like this. And today they decided that that was the wrong move and they're going to stop that. And I'm like, I don't know that it's a complete turn back as if they went the wrong direction on the road. I think it's just they're refocusing themselves and they're going to take a little bit of what they learned there, a little bit of what they knew already, and they're going to marry the two ideas. Like I think that this is the kind of move that Terry Francona is going to bring in his guy, which I've already heard rumors is to Kevin Youkilis. I'd be interested in that. But, he's going to bring in his guy that he trusts because Derek Johnson was here, whether Terry Francona wanted him to be or not, because of the job that he has done. So Terry Francona is going to get the guys that he wants on his staff, and hitting coach is going to be a great spot for that.
Yeah, I agree completely. I feel like you can't judge it too much. You can't judge the firing in a vacuum. Let's see who he brings on.
Mhm.
You can't say it's a break from analytics without seeing who the guy comes in. Now, if they
Right.
bring in Kevin Youkilis, whether it's a hitting coach, even though I think I saw him say he's not super interested in a hitting coach role. It's like a thankless job.
He's a bench coach. He did say
Yeah,
bench coach. Yeah, he did.
Reminds me of Major League when the announcers like the women in Cleveland love the shimmy.
Yeah.
Women and men in Cincinnati love walks.
Hitting coach is a very thankless job, and it only lasts about
walks.
2 to 3 years everywhere.
Right.
So,
I think whatever they saw in Joel McKeith and Terry Bradshaw and Tim or Jim Lamont, whoever that guy is, probably has less to do with whether they're analytically driven or not, and more to do with it's one of the worst hitting teams I've ever watched play baseball last year. So analytics or old school, I don't know. Who gives a crap?
I've been so confused since 2023. In the first half of 2023, they were so patient at the plate for the first half. And then all of a sudden, they all just started hacking.
And they never stopped.
They never stopped.
12-win run, they just started hacking. And I'm like,
yeah.
What philosophy did when you were winning, made you go, 3 catchers is working. We got 3 hitting coaches now. Let's try this. So,
you're right, though. Their approach and patience at the plate for the first
it changed.
Half to 2/3 of last season was a beautiful thing to watch. And
I've heard national announcers talk about it, about why their hitting approach changed, and they don't have any idea.
The only thing I can speak to, and I can't really speak to it, it's pure speculation, is that we know through a friend of ours that the front office, or at least the coaching staff, I should say, not the front office, the coaching staff wasn't too keen on certain methods of veteran leadership and coaching.
Yeah.
And when the only real veteran on the team is the king of plate approach,
yeah,
they stepped in and said, "Hey, cut that out."
And that makes no sense whatsoever. Like, if Joey Votto said something about like hitting, I think that should have been gospel. I don't think anybody should have like shunned it. And I mean, that'd be like being in a kitchen. I've been watching this Netflix series, the Culinary Class Wars or whatever. It's so fantastic, Korean cooking show. But
Okay.
But you got a Michelin star chef in the kitchen. You're going to be listening to that guy, and that's who Joey Votto was. To be like, nah, we don't like him. That's just silly. And I think that's really what led to the option not being picked up, is because there were some jokers in the clubhouse that were just like, we're done with them, and that was silly.
I have that rule here in the house. Well, it's my wife's rule. It's my house, my rules, unless Joey Votto has a different opinion.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's just how it is. So yeah, we'll see who they
hammock
get.
in the living room. That's what's happening.
Yeah, the Joey thing. Joey let him get away with benching him.
Bean burgers.
Joey was very gracious, and
gracious.
I also think the whole, "Hey Joey, I need you to be Roy Moore." He's like, "I'm not Roy Moore."
Right.
Did y'all see? So I remember when Charlie Blackmon had his last game, and they sent him out there by himself, and people were like, "Oh, I wish the Reds would have done this for Votto." And a bunch of people commented, "Well, we didn't know he was retiring." He said he still want to play. Blah blah blah. Well, did you see what the Astros did to Alex Bregman?
Oh,
he doesn't have a contract next season. They sent him out there by himself, even though he could still get re-signed. He's definitely going to keep playing.
I guess they didn't send Kyle Hendricks out there by himself, but they gave him a standing ovation. And Kyle Hendricks doesn't look like he's retiring. Like, initially I thought, I'm like, oh, Kyle Hendricks is retiring. And then I looked, I'm like, wait, he's only 34. Like, I'm older than him.
Let's just do the right thing. Do the right thing by your franchise legend.
Can Alex Bregman re-sign in Cincinnati?
We like signing lots of infielders. That would be a good thing.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be mad about it. So, Dwight, we'll see how these hitting coaches go. I'm interested to see how these other coaching staff moves shake out. Derek Johnson staying on. Love that. I think he's earned that right.
I do. I agree.
Though it's funny. Derek Johnson, you can make a serious argument that he is bad at his job or really, really good at his job. and it goes either way. But I think he's done enough, in my opinion, to where I like the progress he's made. Because occasionally you see guys go to other organizations that thrive right after. Like Ben Lively's still looking good. God, he was good for us. I'm not blaming Luke Weaver on Derek Johnson, though. I'll tell you that.
I don't know what happened. Like, is there some kind of different water in New York or something? Or maybe it's just the East Coast, because then Jeff Hoffman went to Philadelphia and figured out how to be a
Jeffrey
really
Hoffman.
good relief pitcher. Yeah.
Luke Weaver turned it into.
Who was it that went to? Somebody went to Montreal, or not Montreal, but Toronto. We had him for like a hot second.
Gosman. A couple of
Gosman.
Gosman. He stopped in San Francisco and then went to Toronto.
Yeah,
yeah. Gosman
so
was not that
about
good with us. That's for sure.
Who knows what's going on there? We're glad to see Derek Johnson sticking around. I think he's a guy you want to keep around. Did y'all see that they're not doing the budget meetings until the end of October? Doesn't that seem a little late?
It actually seems early to me because they're not going to know on their contract until November 14th.
The Bally thing. That's
the TV.
That's what I wondered about that.
That's
November 14th for the guys that are under contract.
That's interesting because I'm like, man, I feel like you should have at least a general idea of what your budget is going to be before days prior to free agency.
So,
like, how much
November
planning
14th
can you do
is the Bally deadline?
November 14th is the next court date. That should settle because the Reds. The reason the Reds haven't done what Milwaukee and the other ones have done yet is they're under contract. And
because November 14th is also a big off-season day. It's the deadline for players to accept qualifying offers.
Oh,
I think most teams know where they're at on this Bally thing.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly do. I think the Reds will know where they're at probably by the end of October as well, and they need to figure it out. I think they all kind of know where they're at. The worst I've heard is one team had to take a 30% cut, but San Diego, when they did it last year, ended up doing much better, but they've also had a winning season.
Right.
So, how you figure that in,
do better at the gate and on TV.
And on TV, yeah.
Overall. Yeah.
And I think Arizona broke even, but I think it was probably honestly Colorado that took a 30% hit.
There are so many people though that I know would immediately maybe not watch every single game, but they would watch a whole lot more games than they do currently because it would just be so much easier to watch if they did because I think that's what they said they're doing with the Guardians, the Twins, and the Tigers is what they did with the Padres.
Yes. Yeah.
If you did
you
that,
had the option with the Padres to go to 200. I think you get MLB TV, and it was $20 a month to get every Padres game.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to say you could go a little bit more money, and any other game that was non-blockout restricted, you also got them. I think it ended up being like $220 for the year, plus the $20 a month. I would pay that. That's not a big deal.
Cheaper than cable.
Yeah, cable. That's not because I pay for MLB TV every year anyway. Mm-hmm. Most of us.
I get mad about it once. I get mad about it one time, and then I click submit.
Yeah,
and then I'm over pretty quick. Where do you think the regional sports network movement ranks on the Rob Manfred Hates Baseball top 10 list? Because I can't imagine making it so difficult for your fans to watch the sport that they are actively and passionately trying to ingest.
It's
behind the jerseys this year. I know that.
Oh yeah, that was, and I love too that they're like, well, we're gonna change, but it's gonna take until 2026 before we can fully change back. It's like, don't you have like a cache of old uniforms? You should just be able to use those.
Bring them back.
But the regional sports network thing, like, it's so frustrating when you watch. Even the NHL gets it because the NHL does ESPN Plus. You can literally watch every single game. As long as you subscribe to ESPN Plus. And it's not as long as you subscribe to ESPN Plus and Peacock and Apple TV and all this other stuff. Like, it's just ESPN Plus. And, locally here for the Blue Jackets and stuff, I think it's still blacked out. But I know for the most part, it is so much easier to watch any NHL game that you want to. And I'll do
Mhm.
that from time to time throughout the winter, just kind of flip around and see some different cool players like, Connor Bedard and Austin Matthews and all those guys.
Yeah.
But like, I wish it were that easy for baseball. And quite frankly, ESPN Plus is even more cost effective than uh, MLB TV is.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's not as prohibitive. So I think that it should be much easier. And it feels like people have already figured out this equation. And for some reason, Ron Manfred's sitting over here like, man, how do we figure this out? And somebody's like, cheat off my test, please. I got the answer. They graded it. They told me it's right. And he's, man, I don't know. We'll figure this out.
The answer is to get Adam Foskey to share his login and password with us. Got down in the comments, hasn't paid in 5 years. Well, if you do pony up and you do get to watch it and you're not blacked out because you live too close to Cincinnati, even though you're probably in, I don't know, like Alabama or something, you might get to watch some guys you're excited about. There's one guy you may have been hoping to watch that it seems likely you will not, and that is Julian Aguiar. We'll do a little current events. They announced yesterday, I think it was, maybe the day before, that Aguiar is likely to have Tommy John surgery. He is seeking a second opinion to see if he can avoid that. Mark Sheldon jumped the gun a little bit, but this is the annual, monthly, weekly reminder. Don't count on anything. Hope is not a strategy, because Julian Aguiar is one incredible piece of starting pitching rotation depth until he is not. All of these guys that we get excited about are amazing when they're healthy, but sometimes they're not. So it stinks for Aguiar. I think he showed us a lot at the end of this season. Far exceeded any expectations I had for the guy. So get well soon, whether it's through rehabbing and coming back next year or Tommy John. But kind of just deflating news for that guy. Franchi, thoughts on Julian?
It just sucks. It's same with anybody that ever goes through TJ. It just sucks. We all brace for it. We all know what's going to happen to most of them.
Mm-hmm.
It's just what it is.
I like it's weird how it's become like a red flag if you haven't had Tommy John yet.
You're just waiting. It's like time bomb.
Yeah, but we need to get one so they can be repaired.
Yeah,
Something's wrong.
I feel like, and it's not specifically just him. I mean, he would be probably the 7th or 8th starter on the depth chart next year if everybody were healthy. But it's the idea of, look at all of the different guys that are in this organization and how many of them can you count on? Because I think I would also ask you guys this as well. Like, all right, so we know for a fact Aguiar, I mean, they're saying he's getting a second opinion. I think I'm just going to say I believe that it's probably going to confirm the first one.
Yeah,
and
if you had to assume, we assume that he's not available.
Yeah, assume the worst, hope for the best, that sort of thing. Something the Reds don't do. And then Brandon Williamson not going to pitch next year because of Tommy John.
That's the one that hurts me, man.
I
like that guy.
But then let's also consider, do you guys think that Graham Ashcraft is a starter?
Ooh, see, now you're talking to
for a
the
while.
President of the Graham Ashcraft fan club.
Yeah. and
unless he makes serious adjustments, the answer is no.
Because he could be a legit closer. I'm not like trying to put him down like individually, but from a Reds starting pitcher depth perspective, that's 3 guys that you're pretty much like, yeah, I don't know that we can put them on the list. So they got to go out and get somebody. Like they need power bats, they need an outfield guy, and they need starting pitching depth. Like it's a must at this point, because while Chase Petty might be ready at some point, and while Chase Burns might be ready at some point, it's unfair to count them on the depth chart right now. Like saying that you're a playoff team and you got these guys that have never pitched in the major leagues, but they're definitely part of the plan. That seems a little short-sighted.
Well, so and this might sound a little bit controversial, but let's not forget that Rhett Lauder only made his MLB debut out of necessity, not out of merit. Now, he thrived. He was incredible. He showed me that he belongs in the league. But don't let it surprise you if he has a slow start and ends up in Louisville to
Yeah,
kick off
yeah.
next season. It
Adjustments
wouldn't be
happen.
crazy.
Yeah.
I don't expect that, but it wouldn't be wild.
The video
Um,
wasn't out on him yet for hitters to study.
Yeah.
Right.
And some low leverage September games for a
Yeah.
ball club that's out of contention. So let's
Yeah.
keep that in mind. I stole this from John Sadak. I'm sure he wasn't the first to come up with it either, but we love John Sadak, so he gets credit in my book. Well, I was watching a game. It must have been one of the first two iterations of the 2024 Ohio Cup when Sadak mentioned when he sees Emmanuel Clase, he thinks of what Graham Ashcraft could be at the back end of a bullpen. And that's, for me, the first time I allowed myself to think, okay, maybe I just need to give up, sell all my real estate on Ashcraft Island, and let's see what that looks like, because it could be beautiful.
He feels like a heavyweight fighter that has a heck of a haymaker. But if you ask him to sit in there and technically box and maybe throw some jabs, sit back and block, that sort of thing, like he just can't do that. He's got to hit the home run with every single throw that he makes. And to ask him to do that for 80, 90, 100 times a game, it's just not feasible. But if you ask him to do it for 20, 30 times, totally could do that.
He's really good at being effectively wild.
Yeah.
And
That's a good point.
that works well in the bullpen. A lot better than being a starter. Then walks add up, and then you have to get one across the plate, and that's when he gets drilled. You know,
and he's been so, I don't want to say bad, because he's still one of the best in the entire planet at doing what he does. He's better at throwing baseballs than I am at anything. That third time through the order is a disaster.
Yes.
First time's usually pretty good, and he seems to not rebound well when something doesn't go his way.
Big time.
There's a bit of adversity, or even when the Reds have like a long half inning on the offensive side, it seems like every time he struggles out there. If you put him in a relief role, takes care of all that. Every issue is gone. Graham Ashcraft. Now,
he gets upset when a double play ball does not turn into a double play.
Yeah, people saying, "Oh, is he going to accept that? Is he going to accept Is he going to accept a demotion, for lack of a better term, to the bullpen?" Yeah, ask him, do you want to go to the bullpen, or do you want to go to Louisville? Yeah. Do you want a major league clubhouse, or do you want a minor league clubhouse? Do you want to ride on buses or airplanes? Not to mention the paycheck.
Yeah, I think, and his personality too. Like, I love his personality.
I love Mr. Juan's personality too, because I agree. Huzzah, get crunked.
I like that. But I think that his personality fits a relief pitcher as well. Like, I would love to see. I'm kind of to the point where I'm almost rooting for this. And I know that we typically want guys to be starting pitchers because starters are more valuable than relief pitchers. But at this point, we've seen who Graham Ashcraft is as a starter. And he's very streaky good, but also very streaky, very bad. And if you can just distill the very good part and say, go out there and throw as hard as you can for 20 to 30 pitches a night, every other night, every 2 nights, whatever it is. And maybe he even becomes a guy that you're okay with like 2 or 3 innings out of. That might be just as valuable because he could be super dominant. And we see what Emmanuel Clase means to the Guardians, his last appearance notwithstanding. But he's gotten the Guardians where they are. And I think that there's an argument to be made. And while Tariq Skubal wins the argument, Emmanuel Clase is getting votes for Cy Young. And could Graham Ashcraft do that? That's a little bit putting the cart in front of the horse there, but he's got the talent. Could really be shaped into that, I think, by Derek Johnson.
You know what? I would love to see Graham Ashcraft give it up game-losing bombs in the playoffs.
Yeah.
That means the Reds are in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So bring it on, pump it into my veins. The Arizona Fall League has gotten underway. Pull up Kerry Reinhardt's comment here. Maddie McLean and Christian Encarnacion Strand have been drilling the ball. Indeed, they have. How amazing was it to just randomly open up Twitter and be force-fed videos of Matt McLean hitting bombs, just hitting tanks in the AFL. And the CES had a double. Edwin Arroyo had a double. The boys are bopping down in Arizona. I love it. I know it doesn't mean crap, but it's amazing to see.
Matt was batting. That's all that matters.
Yes.
That's all that matters. They're batting. That's all that matters. I don't care if they strike out or hit bombs. Just keep batting.
It's gotta make you wonder if the Reds have been in the playoff hunt. Are those guys come back late in the year?
I wonder a little bit about that, but I'm just glad to see him out there getting it done. Really want to see that happen next year, because having not seen him by the time he gets into a game, it's going to be over a calendar year, almost 2 years, I think, actually. Or at least it's going to feel like that anyway. It's going to be such a shot in the arm for this ball club. As much as we say, like, they need this, they need that, they're so close. If he can come back and be a semblance of who he was as a rookie, and if CES can show us what he was showing us in 2023 and not in 2024, he had a double in that game. That's going to mean so much for this lineup that missed the power. It missed CES, like, because I thought at the beginning of the year, before we found out he had 12 different wrist injuries, I thought he could hit 40 bombs.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I
sure.
still think I could buy into that for next year until proven guilty.
I mean, how many answers does a healthy and successful CES provide? Because we need a right-handed power bat. Boom. Lock down first base. Matt McClain, is he locking down second base, or is he locking down third or center field? Did y'all see those comments today?
Yeah.
Or was that yesterday, where Matt McClain said he is willing to move around, specifically mentioned third base and center field?
I never want to piss off my new closer, Graham Ashcraft, by there being a different second baseman not tossing it to Ellie for the double play. So he's going to be at second base. Let's not play with those games.
That's the hard part for me, is that it's like, I love the fact that he wants to be flexible, but it's like, is it better for the team that he moves and we keep India, who is an okay defender, but he's not as good as Matt McClain?
Want to be the best up the middle you can be.
Yeah.
Every time.
Let's also remember that Jonathan India was an okay defender for 2024 and was a horrible defender the rest of his life.
In no situation does Jonathan India at second base make you the most athletic up the middle that you can be.
Right.
Agree completely.
Is he tradable?
I don't know.
I mean, I think so. I mean, he's a likable, above average offensive player. He can point to that above average defensive season. He's got some swag to him. I don't want to trade him for what it's worth. I like Jonathan India.
No, I don't either. Yeah.
He is making $7 million next year, which seems like a lot for the Reds, but it really isn't for the rest of the league.
It's going to be a couple of guys like that. Like, I think that's kind of where Ty France figures to be in that range. And I think Santiago Espinal is close to that as well.
Yeah.
I saw Espinal get projected at $4 million on the MLB trade rumors, so I don't know how legit that is. I like him a lot better at 4 than I do 7. I'm out on Ty France. I think I saw enough from him. I was on board for a while, but the sample size caught up to him. I think they can get similar production for $6 million less dollars.
Yeah. I like India as my first guy off the bench. So I want India to be my first guy off that bench.
Yeah, and then spot start. He can still get DH start, a first base start, third base start.
Still get 500 at bats. I mean, it's not that big a deal. Just don't want him starting every day.
Well, we thought he was going to be out first guy off the bench this season until the injury set in, and that's how it goes. Let's look at some comments here. Mr. Juan says, "Don't pull a Nick Senzel, Matt McClain. Let him be a second base and learn to hit before moving him around." I can't argue with that. I like that comment. There's a lot of people that argue that Nick Senzel was done a disservice by the way he bounced around. Now, he also just may not have been that dude, but Mr. Juan's point remains. Joey Gaditza. Cheers, gentlemen. Cheers to you too, Joey. Accept my trade in fantasy football next time, you jerk. Yeah, so anybody else that y'all I guess let's put it this way. Your wish list for this offseason. Nick Cross said out loud that the outfield needs to get better. What that means is that internal improvement, or is that then making some moves to bring guys in. Who knows? But for me, it's that's it. We need, depending on how you move pieces around, probably 2 outfielders. Because I love TJ Friedel, but you can't count on him.
Right.
I like having Spencer Steer as my rover, my super utility. Like, let him go play everywhere he needs to, because he's not going to play any of them particularly well, except for first base. And then I think they need to get a pitcher or 2. That's me. We got Jeff.
It feels like right now Stuart Fairchild is the 4th outfielder. If they can make him the 6th outfielder, then that would be good. Definitely pitching in some form, and you could convince me that Nick Martinez plus maybe a couple of like lower end contract type guys is going to be okay. But I would really like to see them get another starter on top of Nick Martinez. And I think Jacob Junis has a club option. I forget if it's player or club option, but I think that he has an option year for next year. They could retain him at a much lower rate than what they would have to pay Nick Martinez. I don't think there's any way Nick Martinez takes his player option at $12 million, because that means he would make less money than he made this past year, and he's did really well. So I think that he's going to make some money on the free agent market. But I think those are my 2 big things. Outside of that, Nick Krall would have to get creative, and I haven't seen him get super creative just yet. He did with a managerial hire there with Terry Francona, but roster-wise, I
the
think
manager thing.
Yeah,
I'm not going to give him credit for the manager. That's like getting a good return on Luis Castillo. Anybody can do it.
Yeah.
If Terry Francona wants the job, anybody can get him. If you want to get good players for Luis Castillo, you can do it. Mr. Juan says thoughts on signing Jurickson Profar instead of Anthony Santander. I think Profar will be cheaper with a similar upside. I just don't trust Santander.
I think I trust Santander more than I trust Profar.
Yeah, I don't really trust Profar too much. Now, I
think
he passes the eye test. He's looked good all year, but the injury bug has been tough on him. I guess the question is, why don't you trust Santander, Mr. Juan? I feel like he's going to hit tanks in Great American. But a guy like either of those guys, in my opinion, needs to be a priority. I've already seen people on Twitter talking about the 107 weighted runs created plus guys that they hope the Reds sign.
Yeah.
Like that's not what we need. We've got those guys.
Yeah.
We need a slugger.
I'm going to sit down soon, and I'm going to just start doing a search, and I'm going to search for – first I'll search for free agents, outfielders that are right-handed and had at least 4.5 WAR last year, and see what I can find. I haven't really done it yet. Rooker's one. He's kind of the obvious one. He's got some fielding issues. Because everybody's going to need outfielders.
Like that.
The Mariners need outfielders. Everybody needs outfielders. Everybody does. Then I'm going to look at free agencies, and I'm going to come up with a list. I haven't done it yet, and I don't know where we're going to end up on it. But I'm sure the same thing all the GMs are doing too. But I do not want anybody that's less than at least 4 WAR in that outfield.
Yeah, we need to do.
Yeah, we got to protect Ellie at some point. CS is still a little bit of a question mark, but you got to give Ellie some protection in that lineup. And he has none right now.
That's a good point.
McLean would help a bunch.
With the year Ellie had, and he had nobody protecting him. A little bit of Tyler Stevenson once the league kind of caught on, and David Bell moved him up in the lineup a little bit. But,
nobody, and they were calling strikes 6 inches off the dirt on a guy that's 6'4" or 5". So
First off, how dare you? So Santander reminds me of Will Myers and Jamer Candelario. How dare you? We're feeling good after this Terry Francona signing, and you're bringing that bad juju into the office. I hate it. I hate that. It kind of makes sense.
That's harsh. What about all right? Let's say probably Juan Soto's out of their league. I'll admit that. Is Teoscar Hernandez out of their league?
I don't think so. I don't think he did enough this year to, set
like
the
$40 million game. Yeah.
Yeah. I think he could be in play.
See, I don't know what Houston's going to do. I think Houston's getting ready to sell.
If they're not going to keep Bregman, I would agree.
I think they're going to let Bregman go, and Houston's going to sell, and you might be able to get your hands on Tucker.
I like the sound of that.
It's not horrible.
Trade package be though.
It won't be that bad. He's not got that much time left.
And also, the official stance of the Riverfront is who cares?
Yeah,
Right.
Send them all away.
yeah. Well, that's another thing is I'm willing to trade Sal, basically all of them. I'm ready to trade
Sal Romano?
No. So Stewart.
You can't retroactively trade Sal Romano, Branch. As much as I wish we could. Yeah, Sal Stewart, I mean, he could bet you something. He's a legit dude. We'll see. I mean, I just know that it's nice to be in this position, I guess. I hope we don't get our hopes up thinking that Terry Francona was this harbinger of good tidings and big checkbooks. But there's a part of me that wonders that now that Phil's calling the shots, you know, in the NBA, they talk about it all the time, new owner syndrome. When a guy buys a team and he immediately wants to make some big moves to shake things up and sort of put his or her mark on the league. Maybe Phil wants to do that. Maybe he's been just waiting in the wings so that he can come and shake things up. And not granted, I don't think anybody's talked more crap about Phil Castellini than the people that run this podcast network. But if he did it, I'd take it all back. I would put up a different billboard saying, keep the team, Phil.
Keep the team, Phil.
Yeah, all right, let's get a couple other things. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Jeff.
No, I was just gonna think out loud, and then I forgot what I was gonna say. So,
guys, you gotta excuse me for just a second.
You're good, brother. Jeff, did you see that article that I think it was Reds.com might have put it out? It was the most comical moments in Reds history.
I did not. There's a lot of those.
They put one out there. Their number one was Tom Browning hanging out on the roof.
Oh, so they mean like heartwarming moments.
Not all of them. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Not some team playing the Globetrotters.
Yeah.
What can you think? Does anything jump out to you that is like for me my favorite comical moment in Reds history was Adam Dunn of the Banana Phone. Adam from Milwaukee.
Oh yeah, that one's hard to top. I still love, of course, Paul O'Neill kicking the ball in from right field, and the fact that Baseball Reference even acknowledged that by putting, what foot he kicks with. The only player on Baseball Reference to have listed what foot he kicks with. Yeah, that's gotta be my top one. I don't know. I kind of love
Joey Votto bought a donkey once. That was pretty good.
Yeah, Joey dressing up as a donkey and trying to really. But there's a lot of Joey moments in there if you think about that. That was one of my favorite things about when he announced his retirement. All the different videos and stuff that you go back and watch the funny moments of Joey Votto and all the different stuff that he did. Like, man, miss that guy.
Yeah, so Paul O'Neill kicking the ball in was number 3 on their list. Votto trolling the Phillies fans in 2016 was number 4. Mm-hmm. Winker waving goodbye to Mets fans, which is aged particularly well.
Winker's becoming a bad boy.
He is a bad boy. People are.
He is.
He's become a polarizing figure in baseball fandom. Mr. One, I agree with that. Joey Votto going off on the Mad Dog was incredible.
That was good.
Tim says Joey the Mountie, that was on Reds.com's list.
Yep.
Email us at team@Riverfront Cincy with your funniest Reds memories. Mr. One said followed by Paul Wilson getting his butt kicked by Kyle Farnsworth. And I'm not going to lie to you, I did not find this funny. As a Reds fan, it made me so sad. I was at an age where this just made me really, really sad. Poor Paul Wilson. Also, Kyle Farnsworth, what a diesel son of a gun, man.
Farnsworth. You don't want to mess with
him. All right.
him.
You guys going to watch the Savannah Bananas come to Cincinnati?
If I can get my hands on a ticket, that's hard to do.
I'm going to watch them in Bristol. I don't know about Savannah Bananas.
Oh, yeah. Did you get your tickets to Bristol yet?
Not yet. I already have my Verbo. I think Ticketmaster bought all the tickets for Bristol. I'll land.
Yeah,
So that's a big place.
I need to figure out something on that regard. We gotta.
I haven't even looked them up yet. I know they're going to be $180 a pop.
Yeah, you got a budget for that. Well, you saved on not going to Jeff Ruby for your most recent trip, so put that into the Bristol budget.
And also, I jumped on and got my Verbo on a lake down there, where I can take the boat down and hang out for the week of. So I'm like, and I got that before the Verbo people figured out. Hey,
which lake?
What? Shoot, I can't remember. It's like Holston, 10 minutes. It might be Holden. I think it was Holden. Holston. I think it is Holston Lake. And I know when I looked at it, it was one place down from a walk-in bar and restaurant, so I can go and have drinks and walk straight back to my place. Don't have to worry about nothing.
All right, guys, we're going to put the address for Branch's Verbo in the. All right, we all know where we're hanging out.
Yeah,
I got
I like that we don't have drinks and walk to bed.
That's perfect. And I'm hoping our daughter's born and ready to travel by the time that game comes around. So
I'm excited for that game. I've probably watched, I want to say 10, 15 races live at Bristol. I used to go every single year to both races.
Yeah, I've been to 4 or 5 there. It's.
I've been in the infield. I've been in the suites. I've been in the, I was in the infield when it was snowing one year, and I'm really excited to be able to watch baseball in Bristol. It's two of my worlds merging. Kind of neat.
Yeah, it's going to be fantastic. I'm so glad that the MLB's doing it. It seems like I don't know. I was going to say it seems like they rarely take risks, but maybe they're taking risks more and more. The rule changes, and they took a risk in signing the contract on those jerseys.
A risk that did not pan out.
All right, fellas. It's been about an hour. We're going on 6 o'clock here. An appropriate happy hour experience. 6 o'clock my time, 7 o'clock your time. Sorry, I'm in the dastardly Central Time Zone. Branch, anything you want to get off your chest before we call it a day?
I need more weeks like this in Reds Nation. I need more weeks like this. This felt so good. It was fun. It's fun to be a fan right now. What do you do with your hands? I don't know. It's such a weird feeling.
That's it.
That's all I got. I need more weeks like this.
We're in the middle of the playoffs, and the Reds made front page news.
Yeah.
It was fantastic. And for doing the right thing, not the wrong thing. I was listening to one of my favorite podcasts randomly today, and one of the guys just brought up how context doesn't really matter. They're talking about like having kids and then being athletes. He's like, and he just said, this guy from Philadelphia, and he just says, I don't expect my kid to grow up and be Ellie De La Cruz. Like, oh, let's go. Let's go. Yeah. It's a random movie podcast. I love it. The Reds are back, baby. We are so back.
Yeah.
Jeff, what do you want to say to the folks before we call
it? It is such a nice feel. I mean, I never would have thought that the manager of the Cincinnati Reds would be on with Dan Patrick. Because quite frankly, I don't think Dan Patrick would want to talk to David Bell. But yeah, such a week, and let's keep it going with this offseason. Let's not. I don't want to see no Adam Duvall signings or. We brought back Luke Weaver on a 3-year deal or something like that. Like, give me some legit stuff.
I have one question for y'all.
The best closer in the playoffs?
One question that I meant to put on the sheet. How do y'all feel about Suarez coming back?
Gino?
Yeah.
Should we talk about the vibes? Good only.
We got the power and the RBIs. I think they'd have to make a trade on the infield. There'd be far too many infielders.
Let's put it this way.
Candelario had to be gone.
I think they could do better. They should probably dream a little higher, aim higher. But if the universe lines up so that Gino Suarez is on my favorite baseball team next year, pump it into my veins.
That's what I wanted to ask, because it's a hard one. It's like, well, I'd really like Bregman, but Huh. I love Geno.
Close.
I'd love it.
Closest we got into a 50 homer red in a long time.
Yeah.
There's a couple other people probably on my wish list ahead of him, but I would welcome him with open arms. And this is also your friendly reminder that the Reds lost that trade.
Bad.
All right, gentlemen. Thank y'all so much for coming and hanging out. To everybody in the chat, Mr. Juan, Carrie, Dwight, Skyler, some guy named Tim Daniel and his horrible takes, Adam Foskey, Joey Gaditza, who needs to make better trades in fantasy football. Thank you so much to everybody. This was a lot of fun. Probably something I'm going to try to do a little more often during the off season. We're going to mix things up a little bit. We may take a week off here or there. A lot going on in the world. But as long as the Reds are making news, there's two places I know you can go and get your fix. Here weekly, Locked On Reds daily. And they are the best. They're the best Reds podcast, let's be honest. But we are a close 14th. And we appreciate y'all coming to hang out. All right. So shouts to everybody. Thanks to the Blue Wire Network, of which we are a member. And use the code Riverfront at SeatGeek to get $20 off your tickets. All that stuff. We love you. So long, Cincinnati.